Welcome to the Ex Good Girl podcast, the place where people pleasers, perfectionists, and overgivers come to unlearn the good girl rules that you thought were making you good, but now you can see are actually just keeping you small. If you've spent your life being unable to say no, putting everyone else's needs and feelings above your own, constantly seeking external approval, or avoiding conflict to make others feel comfortable, if guilt and resentment feel like a constant weight in your life, it is time to learn to knock that shit off. Every episode, we dive into the stories, skills, and strategies that you need to stop shrinking, start speaking up, and to live a life that is authentically and unapologetically yours, while also deepening the connection and vulnerability in the relationships that matter to you. I'm glad you're here. Let's jump in. One of the funnest things about being a coach and knowing other coaches is just how many ex-good girls I run into. And in this case with, with you, Meagan, you and I are ex-good girls of like exactly the same stripe in that we were both members once of the LDS Mormon Church. And now we're not. And we have different stories of how we got here. And yours touches on such a tender issue, I think, for a lot of people right now. If you are paying attention to politics in the United States, there's a lot of talk right now around our trans brothers and sisters and our trans children, our trans fellow citizens. And this isn't going to be political in nature at all, because that's not what we're here to talk about today, but it is going to be your story of how you came to know you had and love and accept, and how having a trans child changed you.
Mm-hmm. Sarah, thanks so much for having me. I'm already feeling choked up as you're saying those words, because it's still, I'll say fresh.
Mm-hmm.
It's, um, it's been a little over a year since I, formally took a step back, meaning I just, even more so since the Supreme Court, since the LDS Church submitted the amicus curiae brief to the Supreme Court about a month ago, 3 weeks ago. Anyway, I just feel this emotion coming up. It's not an easy place to be in. And it's not often I hear myself described in that way. But if, at my heart of hearts, like, yeah. So buckle up. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think all of us who are listening, whether we have a conservative religious background or not, there are people who listen who grew up in other conservative denominations or groups, and those who didn't. And I think it doesn't matter. We all can look back at our good girl behavior and programming, and we kind of have a sense for like what we were taught to do and believe, what our roles were, what
Hmm.
the big rules were that we followed in our lives, and some of the ways that we were rewarded even for being really good girls. And so I wonder, Meagan, as you look back, what is your good girl story?
Yeah. So I was born and raised in the LDS faith. And it wasn't until a few years ago, I don't think, that I realized how much I looked to external things. I'll use the word things, but I'm talking about behaviors or observances that I did or didn't do. The success of my relationships, my belonging. I believed it to be belonging, fitting in. I'll say fitting in to my faith community. How I was maybe perceived or seen among those in that same community, including family members, um, you know, and I suppose by extension that included my how I felt about my worthiness or goodness or
Mm,
lovableness
yeah, yeah.
with those around me and with God, the divine. source. Um, yeah, I think that was a pretty big chunk of how I identified. I mean, I had other interests. I loved dance growing up. I liked to read once I got a little older. I played a couple of instruments, that kind of thing. But that is a big part of how I identify. And also, I was the first daughter, second child, and so there was this nurturer in me that came out. I don't know if it would have had I not been the second child, first daughter. I don't know, but I think I got a sense of how well I was doing or who I was by how well I took care of others,
Yeah.
my younger siblings, and then when I hit my teens, I babysat a lot.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so interesting to just consider that at the heart of certainly our faith and many Christian faiths,
Hmm.
you're taught to love and be in relationship with a God who has to be talked into loving us by our obedience and by our worthiness. And so I very much identify with this, like exchanging our good behavior for feeling worthy, exchanging
Hmm.
keeping the commandments, quote
Right.
unquote, for feeling like a good person.
And that's why I never said no to a calling, which is a
Right.
word for the opportunity to give service among
Yeah.
those in your faith community. Usually, at least when I was younger, among those my same age, my peer group. But even if I felt like I was quiet, I
Mhm.
might even say shy growing up, I think I've evolved more into an introvert who can be extroverted at times. I learned that shyness is not the same as being an introvert. But even if it really stretched me out of my comfort zone, I would usually say yes. It wasn't until I had my second baby and I was just so, so stretched, I asked to be released from a
Mhm.
calling.
Did you have the sense that because looking back, I really feel like there are women who experience it a couple different kind of ways. Like way number one, it kind of works and works and it's fine and it's fine and it's going well. And then it just kind of falls off a cliff. Or you have the sense here and there that it's not working, but you just keep pushing and keep
Mhm.
pushing and keep pushing. Do either of those experiences describe what you were going through, or is it
Yeah.
something different?
No, no, for sure. Probably the one that resonates the most is the first.
Hmm.
Yeah, definitely fell off a cliff. I think I was pushed off.
Okay, tell me more.
Okay. Um, and I say this, hindsight is 2020. I always have a hard time recounting this because I would never want my child to listen and feel that this was a true reflection of who they
Yeah,
were then or who they are now,
yeah, that's
but
so
more that
tender.
it's
Yeah.
it's um it's a reflection of me and my
Yes.
understanding of life, on a spiritual level, an emotional, mental, relational, and at the time religious. But I learned that my kiddo identified as LGBTQ plus, and this has been about 6.5 years ago. And it was through a text. So he didn't have the opportunity to tell me himself. And I've learned since then he was scared.
Yeah.
He was scared he would be rejected.
Yeah.
And that just broke my heart when I learned that, not knowing how many kids, and I say kids because he had just turned 13. And so well, you know what? It sent me in a tailspin. It was because of my upbringing, it was so traumatic. It brought up so much cognitive dissonance. Like it was this, I could feel it viscerally. It affected me on a physical level.
makes a lot
And
of sense.
it was hard. It was so, so hard. There were times I felt like I couldn't breathe that first summer. And so I do remember having a connection with God. I use more than one term to refer to divine
Mhm.
source, the universe, the power that's greater than all of us. But that is one thing I truly feel like I did learn how to do, and that was to connect and hear, feel, sense inspiration, guidance, messages, whatever you want to call it, that inner voice, capital I, capital V. And I remember one day feeling so overwhelmed. I mean, it was an hourly thing. It was just, I mean, it was just a constant thing. That's a better way to put it. And I just came downstairs and I just kind of collapsed in the kitchen. And I just kind of cried out, not literally cried because there were people upstairs, but I'm just like, I need help. I do not know what I am doing. I don't know what is next. I don't know my way forward. Um, please help me. I feel so lost. And honestly, almost immediately, I truly felt this peace start to blanket me. And the message was just take it one step at a time. Take it a day at a time, an hour at a time, even a minute at a time if you need to. Like that was the essence of the message. And in a fast paced world where we get information at the push of a button, where we can get food just by, well, using an app or drive through or whatever, um, I realized I wasn't very good about slowing down. But that is truly what kind of saved me at that point. I was able to just focus on the next thing, literally, even if that was the next minute or the next hour, and just take it one step at a time. And I'm really grateful I learned that because that's really what is needed when you are trying to make space for uncertainty, when you're trying to make space for the inevitable doubts and questions that are going to come up when you are faced with a situation similar to this. Because uncertainty means you know right then. I'm sorry, certainty means that. It's like kind of instant gratification a little bit. I mean, once you feel like you have internalized something and you know it for certain. But when you have to let that go, yeah, that requires a lot more patience and openness.
Yeah, because there's a new reality coming that you
Mm-hmm.
don't know anything about. There's a new
Mm-hmm.
um yeah, there's a new version of you, there's a new version of your child, there's a new version of your family, possibly a new version of your faith, your
Mm-hmm.
perspective, and that is a lot to kind of all have come up at once and start
Mm-hmm.
to unravel.
Yeah.
So I love that one day at a time, an hour at a time, even a minute at a
Yeah.
time, because I think in our wanting certainty, whether it's a religious certainty or just a certainty that my marriage is going to last, or that I am going to be able to figure out who I am next and what I want next. That loss of certainty or that loss of the way things are can be so painful and so
Yeah.
destabilizing.
It is. It totally is.
And so as you are taking in, information from your church about, this is right, this is wrong, this is acceptable, this is not acceptable, and kind of
Mm-hmm.
matching it up with the lived experience of this
Mm-hmm.
child that you love and seeing it doesn't match and all these things are kind of unraveling, what what kind of emerges in you as important to hang on to? Because I think that's what's so interesting is that in every woman that I talk to has had
Mm-hmm.
some kind of either faith transition or other transition out of this is the way I used to be, this is the way I am
Mm-hmm.
now.
Mm-hmm.
There are always a couple of things like values or experiences or
Yeah.
things that kind of come up as like North Star type
Yeah.
guiding principles. Did you have any? And if so, what were they?
Yeah. For me, it just came to this point. Yes, I did all of those things that you were talking about. I still do them, right? This is an ongoing journey. Um, but I think it finally came to this point for me where I needed to either lean into that trust I had with my inner knowing that I had learned, cultivated, developed, strengthened throughout my life. This, you know, could say the ability to receive personal revelation is what it's called in the LDS faith, and it can still be called that. For me, it's like divine downloads. It's hearing messages, communing with the divine. It came to this point where truly it was I either lean into that or I don't. I do what is being told me or whatever by these external sources, teachings, words, writings, doctrines.
Yeah.
And well, when you're going against something that you just know is good to your core. When that incongruence is going on. I mean, I was experiencing it for a long time. And it's like this floodgate just burst. And I'm just like, there came a point where I had the opportunity to talk with my kiddo and just say, it was kind of at a climax of a point. Some communication had kind of gotten jumbled, and it was during the pandemic. And he had stopped participating in home church. And it was just kind of a sticky time, tumultuous time, I guess. But I took the opportunity to just look at him squarely in the eyes and take him and just say, listen, I'm learning there. I know way less than I used to think that I did know, that I have way more questions than I truly have answers for, and that I don't know everything, but I do know that you were made perfectly. There's nothing wrong with you. You are beautiful, you are divine, you are loved, and we'll figure this out. And I love you. And gave him a big hug. And I think he felt heard. Well, I know he did. We were both crying at this point, but it's so important to listen to that inner voice, which often comes not just through words that we hear, but through these sensations that we have in our body and through promptings, and that we lead with love.
I think that is, first of all, so beautifully said. And second of all, it's so hard, right? To really listen to that inner voice, especially when in religious groups, in cultural groups, in gender groups, we are really told to listen
Yeah.
to outer voices, right? What we should look like, what we should believe, what we should be thinking, who we should be pleasing. Don't rock the boat. Don't have, big opinions that make anybody outside of you think less of you. And so that's so important, and also kind of a really sticky thing for a lot of women to actually do, to really find and trust and listen
Mm-hmm.
to that inner voice.
Mm-hmm.
So you're learning to really listen to and trust that inner voice. And one of the things that begins to happen is there is a divergence, right, between this is
Mm-hmm.
what the outer authorities want you to
Mm-hmm.
do, and then here's
Yeah.
what my inner voice is telling me to do, and it's taking me in a different direction. And
Yeah.
how was that for you?
I would say the hardest part about all of that is I had to give myself permission to self differentiate. That was hard, mostly because of the way I had been taught. And I mean, I'll just call it conditioning. And it just means the way that I was taught I needed to be, and that a woman's role was, or a young person's role was. Because in order to heed that inner voice, that meant doing, saying, observing, or not observing certain practices in a way that was distinctly different from those around me. And I tried for a long time. I even took other callings. I was trying really hard to make it work, because there's nothing more excruciating than feeling like you're being forced to choose between two things that are deeply meaningful to you. Your faith, it goes back 6+ generations for me. I have pioneer ancestry, no pressure.
Mhm.
And then also your child, who you care deeply about, you love with all your being. I felt like I was being ripped apart down the middle.
Yeah. And when
Uh,
you say pioneer ancestry, those are the people who kind of left
yes,
where the Mormon church was started and traveled by wagon to
yes,
Utah and set up, what is kind of known as the present day headquarters of the church. So it's a long generational,
yes.
legacy of Mormonism in your family.
Yeah, one of my predecessors was one of the first 12 apostles of the original church.
There's nothing more excruciating than being forced to
Yeah,
choose between two things
yes.
that mean
And so I
everything
think
to
that's
you.
why I was trying so, I mean, I really was trying to make it work. And after, I don't know, a couple years-ish, I really don't remember. It's kind of foggy. But it just came to a point where I had to choose me. I had to choose my mental health. I had to put me first. It was, and maybe for somebody else in the same situation, it wouldn't require this. And that's fine. I honor that. But for me, it was like, if you're in an abusive relationship, whether that's verbally abusive, like not respecting you in the way they speak to you, using derogatory terms, describing you as less than, or that kind of a thing, that's like a punch to your emotional gut, right? It's not obvious like physical interaction that becomes abusive. There's no actual blood, there's no actual open wounds, right? There's not a need for triage in that way. And I think that's why the triage that is so necessary in our emotional and mental health has gone unnoticed, untended to for such a long time. But that is how it felt. I honestly, I wrote this in my book. I kind of felt invisible. I felt like I was, you know, wrestling with things that I would bring up to others, and some would listen kindly, and then others tried to offer these great solutions. And we have, come and watch this with us. And there's someone else who's going to be there that also has children that are, I don't know, straying or something to that effect. And I was just like, that is not the energy I'm looking for, because I love my children and was nothing wrong with them. By that time, my oldest had left as well. So I think really standing up for my own self in all the different ways, listening to that inner voice and heeding it, acting on it, and doing the things for me that I knew were in my best interests,
Yeah. Yeah.
advocating for me.
And so when you started to advocate for you and to put your mental health first and
Mhm.
to really prioritize you, what changed?
Well, I was able to consciously create safe spaces for me and create a space where I could explore and ask questions and cultivate relationships that could reciprocate that, realizing they didn't have to agree with me. I think that's just fine, but you don't have to agree to respect and to have empathy for someone, or at least try to have empathy. For me, being a podcaster, I didn't realize it at the time when I started it, but it was deeply healing for me and still is, because I was able to have increasingly more open conversations. Like if you were to go back to where I first started, very different conversations then as to what I'm having now. And it's just, I just decided to be open about it as I went. And I didn't realize how healing it would be for me. And that was truly a godsend, because I was able to connect with others who experienced similar things. They also experienced different things, but we could agree at least on showing love and honoring one another, no matter where we were at in our journeys. But I'll tell you, Sarah, my relationship with myself has deepened and expanded so much in a way that I really didn't know was possible. And I'm truly in a place where I I am choosy about when and where and with whom and for how long I spend my time, which is another word for energy, right? Um, because I feel full, like I feel like I am meeting my purpose. And if you want to use the word calling, because I feel like everything that I have done up to this point, I have been guided to do. Have I done it perfectly? I don't even know what that word means anymore. I have come as my whole self each time. And I have, I've evolved into a new person, died so many deaths, I've lost count. And a new Meagan has emerged each time. And I like spending time with me. I like spending time with other people who fill my bucket, and my hope is that I can fill theirs too. One of my favorite sayings is, I water you, you water me, we grow together. And that's what I seek out.
And so tell me when you decided that you wanted to write a book about this.
That's a great question. Very early on. I'm talking 2021, maybe before then. For sure, I remember in 2020, so it'd maybe been a year. I felt as I was increasing in my understanding and the light bulbs were going on and the dots were connecting for me, like, wow, we have completely misunderstood this beautiful community of people. We need to, more people need to know about this, right? I felt this, like it was like a magnet pulling me toward this purpose to be an advocate. I felt called to be an advocate from very early on. And as I continued to learn, I was like, I should write a book. And it just was there. That's all I know. This pull, just this knowing I had a book inside of me. And I didn't quite know how that would happen, because where in the world do you find an agent? How do you get a publishing company to sign you on? Right? I had no idea how any of that worked. But in 2022, my paths crossed with Kira Brinton, and it was at a conference. And I remember learning she was there with some of her authors. She had her own publishing house, and I said, "You what?" She's like, "Yeah." I said, I know I have a book. You could publish it?" She's like, "Absolutely." And I was like, I didn't know something like that existed. And I knew I was going to work with her. I didn't know when, but um, a little over a year later, I started to work with her. And we're coming up on almost 2 years, and my book is now published as of 3 days ago.
Amazing. And as we were chatting, it's the #1 new release in 3 categories, namely LGBTQ plus biographies and teen issues. And so, Meagan, congratulations. That is
Thank
just
you.
such an
That means a
incredible
lot.
accomplishment. If, as we wrap up here, is there anything else that you
Mhm.
would want people to know? Because I don't want to tell a lot of what is in your books. I want people to go
Yeah,
buy your book, right? But what
right.
would you want people to know about you, about just anything that you haven't gotten to say yet?
So I was very purposeful about my title. I I knew the title of it. I call it Transparency, and I spell it TransparentSEE. And the subtitle is How I Learned to See Through My Journey as a Parent of a Transgender Kiddo. And that title and subtitle really encompasses the essence of this journey up to this point. I began to let layers upon layers peel back from my view, like literally and figuratively, on life. And I began to see things, which is another word for knowing, understanding, that I could not unsee and then remain in my integrity. I couldn't do it. Like it just went against everything inside of me. It would be ignoring the least of these, right? Which we're taught to be especially conscientious of and extend love and mercy and grace and all of that to them. So this book, that title, it really is the epitome of what my journey has been and kind of my message and who I am, and I'm trying to continue to be, ever evolving, ever trying to educate myself on. There's so many things that we could have touched on. How I learned to distinguish sex from gender expression,
Mhm.
and separate all of that from having some kind of moral value if I viewed it differently than what I had been raised to view that as. Anyway, just yeah, I'm so excited. It took a lot. Like I evolved into a different person who could publish something so raw and vulnerable. But I show up authentically in it, and I'm proud of it.
Well, Meagan, having known you, over the years, it's been, first of all, incredible to see some of this transformation through social media, and then to talk with you and kind of get the behind the scenes. I love Kira. She is a personal friend of mine and has been for a lot of years. We were actually um, in a Mormon congregation together for a little while. So the connections are pretty wild. But if people want to purchase your book,
Mhm.
if they want to learn more about you, where should they go to find that out?
So I recently updated my website. It's got all of the things on it about me. If you go to my website and then click on speaking, media, and more, scroll down, you'll see my book.
Okay. And
And
what is your website?
my name, MeaganSkidmoreCoaching.com. And if you scroll down, there will be a link where you can order it on Amazon. And I say that because if you do a search for transparency, because of the distinct spelling, it may not come up for you.
Right.
If you put, I use my maiden name as well for my author name. So if you use that link, you can get there. But also, I'm on Instagram. I'm quite active on Instagram, and it's the same handle, Meagan Skidmore Coaching. I'd love to connect with you.
Okay. I will link that in the show notes for sure. And Meagan, I'm so impressed. Writing a book is, first of all, incredible. And then to share something so raw that will help so many people is just such a gift. So thank you for writing that. And thank
Thank
you
you.
for talking with me
Thank you
today.
so much, Sarah. I so appreciate you. Sending you love and light.
Thank you. You too. Hey, thanks for listening. If this podcast has been helpful to you, I would really appreciate it if you would give me a 5-star rating in whatever platform you listen to your podcasts. And if you go to my website, sarahfisk.coach,
you can sign up there to receive my emails. Right now, I'm taking private one-to-one clients who want my help speeding up this work in their own lives. I really hope to provide a lot of free information on my website and in my podcast for people to do this work on their own. But if you're interested in having a coach like me to help you implement these things faster, to find the blind spots and obstacles that you're not aware of, go to my website and sign up for a consult. That's a time when you and I can get on Zoom and talk about the particulars of your situation, and I can show you how I could be helpful. The second thing you can do on my website is sign up for a freebie that I have called Difficult Conversations. Having a conversation that seems like it's going to be hard or difficult is one of the things that people pleasers struggle with. And so I've created a whole guide for you to be able to do that with some more confidence. That will also get you signed up for information about my group program, Stop People Pleasing. It's a group coaching program where you join a community of women just like you who are struggling to overcome perfectionating and people pleasing, and we do it together in a group. It's a really amazing opportunity to not just learn from your own experience, but just to see how similar you are to so many other women out there. The healing and the challenging and the laughing and the growth that happens in that beautiful community of women is really amazing. And if it's interesting to you, I would love for you to know about it.